I mean,
I
just to
mean,
make it a ball game, right, Ant?
so
Because it got to a
yeah,
situation
because
where you're looking at that game like this could get ugly. Like 20 could grow into 30,
Yep.
30 could possibly grow into 40 with that team on the road in Fog Allen.
but even further from that is for Kansas. Like when you have a squad like Kansas, all these new backcourt pieces, you can mess around with a bunch of different lineups as long as you're in control of the game, right? You could play certain guys extended minutes. You can see a little bit more mistakes and lengthen some leashes just to see what they do. But when it gets tight, all that goes out the window, bro. So, like, you go with who you're going to trust to bring home the win. And that's what Bill Self had to do. So you saw who they had in the backcourt the last few minutes. They had Mayo, Storr, and DeJuan. Mayo and Storr did not start. But at the same time, we have to see who's going to finish these games. And you're going to see when things get tight, you know exactly who coach trusts. That 8-9 man rotation goes down to 6 immediately, right? So, and you also saw who did they run their scoring concepts through? They ran it through Zeke. Like almost every play they ran through, even the play to get Hunter the last layup, Zeke made that pass. So I think overall we found out who Kansas and Bill Self trust right now and how they think of Zeke Mayo. I talked with Hunter over the summer, and I was asking him about El Marco, and I was asking him about Storr, and you know what? He goes, "Hey, bro, look, Zeke Mayo is the truth. Zeke Mayo is nice." So that made me pull up some South Dakota State film. And sure enough, I saw it, and you see it right away. It's translating. I think Zeke can be a little bit better version of what Remy Martin was a couple years ago for them. Whether they want to play him off the bench and just be that guy coming in playing 25 minutes, or they can still start him and hoop it up.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
It's crazy having those guys come off the bench too, man. It's crazy because him and Storr changed their game so quickly, and just to have those caliber of players coming in off of the bench, man, it's just really unfair advantage. If I had to guess, though, I would say that Kansas is gonna kind of do a little bit of soul searching and some mixing and matching until they get the exact lineups and rotations that they love too.
Yeah, and speaking of Storr and also Zeke Mayo, I mean, they combined for 34 of the 42 points off the bench for Kansas, right? I mean, you have a guy in Mayo that led all game scores with 21 points and 50% from the field. So just knowing who he is and knowing his game, like, he's one of those dudes that it doesn't matter really what situation he's in. If he's off the bench or if he's a starter, he's a guy that's going to come in and produce. And I think that's one of the many reasons why Kansas has that number 1 ranking attached to that name. But also, this is the same team, and going back to that final possession. And Tyler, you were mentioning this with Jalen Washington and wanting him to try and change that screen. And I was right there with you. I think you can chalk that up to Jalen Washington being in that situation and not having as much experience in it. But, I'm trying to show a little love for him, but at the same time, he's been in situational basketball in practice to really break things down. But it's different when you're under the lights and on that type of level and platform. But you have a guy in DeJuan Harris Jr. that was face guarding RJ and really made it tough for any screens for RJ to come back to that basketball. And so I think when you think of a guy like DeJuan Harris, who has that experience with this team, you're never going to be in a situation where the Kansas Jayhawks will really just get out of body and just play wild basketball. I know DeJuan was a little bit like that earlier in his time in Kansas, but we've seen his growth and maturation at that point guard spot, and that's special for Bill Self. So if he decides to bring Zeke Mayo into that starting lineup, just that backcourt and just that calm stoicness of both of those players, it could really get nasty for a lot of opponents throughout the season. So we'll definitely keep an eye on the Kansas Jayhawks and, of course, the North Carolina Tar Heels. But just thank you to both of those programs for bringing some old school college basketball back to where they have a home-and-home series. They're not doing it at a neutral court, and you can feel that environment. It kind of felt like a January environment to me, just with those fans inside that building. It was great. All right.